Hello. I wish you doing well. Today we'll all talk about women in the Ottoman Empire. Islamic women in the Ottoman Empire were governed by Sharia. Sharia deals with many topics written by secular law including crime, politics, and economics. On personal matters such as sexual relationship, hygiene, diet, prayer, daily etiquette and fasting. There are two basic sources of Sharia law, the principles stipulated in the Quranic verses, and an example of this was presented by the Prophet of Islam Muhammad in the Sunnah of the Prophet, where it had an official character. Islamic Sharia interpreted the Sharia judges, with varying responsibilities for religious leaders, imams, and for the questions that were not raised directly in the primary sources, where the application of Sharia is expanded through the consensus of the religious scholars to embody the consensus of the Muslim community, consensus. Muftis have an important role in this decision-making process. And the reason for this is that educated scholars record their opinions on a specific issue and can influence the judge's decision. The judge or any other individual may request the assistance of muftis in legal matters. Depending on the status of the mufti, it is possible that his fatwa cancels the judge's decision in some cases. The secular woman possessed many institutions at that time. For example, an Ottoman woman can own and maintain ownership after marriage. They had access to the justice system and access to a judge, as well as standing in front of the court itself. By comparison, many married European women did not have this right and did not have private property until the 19th or 20th century. Despite these advantages, the law limits women's ability to testify for themselves, which leaves them in a disadvantaged position. Because women had access to the legal system and much of the information about women in Ottoman society came from the records of the court. Muslim women in the modern empire buy and sell property, inherit wealth, create endowments, borrow and lend money, and at times work as a holder of Timar land in the Ottoman Empire and use usufruct rights on government land such as farmers' taxes and in commercial partnerships. Because of their influence on Sharia courts and the importance of these courts in the empire, non-Muslim women often see conversion as a means of achieving greater independence. Ottoman society kept women under control, such as courtesans or by marriage. Usually the marriages are carried out by the parents, and sometimes they may be fleeing by men, but women rarely do so. Where it is rare for anyone of both sexes to stay. In a survey conducted in the 20th century, only 2% of women did not marry before the end of their reproductive years, and polls in 1885 and 1907 found that 8 and 5% of men did not marry in the mid-1950s. As Muslim men can marry non-Muslim women, their lineage will be considered Muslim. However, non-Muslim men cannot marry Muslim women. Polygamy is relatively uncommon and was present only in the community of minors and religious officials where monogamy, marriage to one woman, was the rule. In the 18th and 19th centuries the princesses gained a strong influence in high society, and as a result many women from high society began to demand monogamy and frown on polygamy with limited success. Divorce cases were fairly frequent and could be from one of the parties. However, men do not have to provide the reason, and he can expect to compensate him and his wife. While a woman has to present a reason like there is a good lack of understanding between us. Women lose any financial benefit given to them for marriage upon divorce, and in some cases they pay their husbands. Women have sex with each other in their homes and in public baths. Women of high society, especially those who did not live in the palace, visited each other for long periods of time in their homes. And those who lived in the palace followed strict morals that prevent intercourse with others easily. City women visited each other in homes and also in baths, which were important social rituals. Women used to bring the finest shower accessories, such as embroidered towels and high-heeled sandals. Organizational reforms of the Ottoman Empire in the 19th century brought additional rights for women, especially in the field of education. The first schools for girls were opened in 1858, followed by prosperity in 1869 when primary education became compulsory. In 1863 the first middle-level schools and a teacher training college were opened. While men's education focused on job training, women's education focused on forming the best Muslim wives and mothers with knowledge of blessings. The movement for the education of women broke out in a large part of women's magazines. The most famous were the women's newspapers, the official women's newspapers, that lasted for 14 years and were successful to establish their own printing press, where management, editing and employment were almost exclusively for women. The magazine aims to enable women to become better mothers, wives and Muslims. Her topics revolve around feminist discussions, fashion, economic imperialism and independence, including home sewing patterns of fashion and European advertisements for sewing machines and the comparison of Ottoman modernism with Japanese and technical modernism, and the usual thing in the magazines of middle-class women of the 19th century, royal gossip and scientific housewife, health, improve imagination, child care. The women of the imperial harem rose in the greatest strength during the 16th century. From about 1521 Suleiman the Magnificent ascended the throne until he reached the mid-17th century, a period known as the Sultanate of the Harem. During this time, high-ranking women gained political power and public importance. It can help in domestic politics, foreign negotiations, and even serving the guardian. In particular, the Queen Mother and the essential courtesans gained a great deal of political power and helped to legalize the empire at that time. The term Sultanate of the Harem refers to the strong influence of the women's pavilion in the Ottoman Sultan's palace and their interference in the affairs of the state that ruled a large part of the world. The Ottomans used the term Sultanate Kadınlar, meaning Sultanate of Women, to refer to their exercise of royal roles, while the Arab counterpart Sultanate of the Harem is preserved on the word that was popular in the Ottoman era to refer to the huge wing or the so-called haremlik attached to the palace of the Ottoman Sultan, which includes his mother and wives next to him. His family members are single women, in addition to the servants and employees of both sexes appointed to care for the ward and its members. In this sense, the Sultanate of the Harem is part of the broader concept of Kamarilla, which refers to that elite that exploits its proximity to the ruler, the Sultan, king, or emperor, to interfere, albeit in secret, in the affairs of the state without having positions in it. For nearly 130 years, between the 16th and 17th centuries, members of the harem wing of the palace of the Ottoman ruler exercised roles that affected the path of the state, and this came in particular from either the mothers of the sultans or their wives. The 16th century witnessed, coinciding with the last years of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, the rise of the harem and the sultan's withdrawal from the diwan sessions. Khurram Sultan is the wife of the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, the mother of his son and successor Selim II, also known by her original name Roxolana. She faces historical accusations of involvement in the execution of Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha and the eldest son of Al-Kanuni and the candidate to succeed him Mustafa, although this has not been absolutely proven. Khurram was born in a town called Rahatan, inhabited by the Russians, but controlled by the Polans. Rahatan, Stalin annexed it to Ukraine in 1939, and it is believed that her father is a Russian Orthodox priest. In 1520, the Crimean Tatars were kidnapped during their usual attacks on the peninsula and sold on their way to Sultan Suleiman's palace. There, Khurram started in the royal palace as a slave, and then converted to Islam. It was also the first female slave to marry a sultan from the Ottoman sultans, as they were not married to the slave woman. Some historians defend Sultana Khurram as the custodian of many charitable endowments, and for standing behind her husband, whose achievements were singled out by a unique position in the chain of the Ottoman sultans. He is accused of her role in inciting the sultan to his son and his crown prince Mustafa to make way for her son Salim towards the Ottoman throne. This was assisted by the husband of her daughter Muharrem, the Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha, who seized the opportunity to lead Mustafa to a military campaign to Persia to write to the Sultan that his son, with the help of his beloved military, intends to turn against him. In 1553, the Sultan traveled to Persia and summoned his son to his tent to be strangled upon entry with a thread of silk according to Ottoman traditions and the execution of important figures. The ambassador of Austria wrote at the court of Al-Kanuni, who wrote a book on the Ottoman Empire printed in 1633, praising the Ottoman Sultan and enumerating his merits before he addresses the incident of the Crown Prince's killing. He says, Roxlana. But he was in love with his wife, and his growing love for her that caused him to kill his son Mustafa. Even this deficiency is usually attributed to the fact that it overcame it with its beautiful beauty and the elixir of love. Certainly, after he chose her to be his lawful wife, he did not touch any other woman, even though their law did not prevent him from doing so. Historians accuse Harem of being behind one of the most controversial events of Ottoman history, that is the execution of Alcindor the Great, the powerful Rafik Sabah al-Kanani, and his right-hand man, Ibrahim Pasha. According to the accounts, Sultana Harem sought to undermine the Sultan's confidence in Ibrahim, especially with the latter's support for Mustafa, the eldest son of the Sultan from his first wife, Madaran. In one of the letters that Harem wrote to the Sultan, Ibrahim Pasha mentioned explicitly, as follows: Roxlana City, you ask me why I am angry with Ibrahim Pasha, and when God brings us together again, I will tell you the reason, and you will understand me. Roxlana historians link the execution of Ibrahim Pasha by suffocation by a royal decree in 1536. First Ilyas Pasha was appointed, then Lafi Pasha, after which the husband of Harem's daughter, Rustam Pasha, was appointed a greater chest of law. The roots of the Harem Christianity have followed its historical reputation, as it is accused of using its position to undermine the Islamic Ottoman Empire for the benefit of other countries, including the Safavids. And historians claim, without support, that it is Jewish in origin, linking its conduct in the royal palace to that. An investment for its influential position, Harem has provided many endowments and charitable facilities in the Ottoman capital, and as the wife of the Muslims of Khalifa, her work included Mecca and Jerusalem. Among her early works were a mosque, 2 Quranic schools, and a women's hospital in Istanbul, in addition to a bathroom serving worshippers in Hagia Sophia. In Jerusalem, the Waqf inaugurated by Roxlana in 1552 continues to provide services to the poor, and it is now known as Hasaki Sultan, in reference to the honorary title of Sultan Harem. And in the month of Ramadan in particular, this historic and cultural landmark continues to have a special presence in giving, as the poor, orphans, the needy, and those who cross the road flock extensively to provide breakfast. Harem died on April 15, 1558, and was buried in a vaulted shrine belonging to the Suleimani Mosque. And her husband, Sultan, was later buried near her. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends.